Nothing is random. Introduction. The universe follows a perfect order from which nothing and no one escapes. What may appear as chaos on the surface often hides a deeper structure, one that's difficult to grasp at first. That painful moment you're going through, the delay that made you miss an appointment or what seems like misfortune, they are not accidents. They are events, precisely placed to guide you towards something greater, something far more transcendent. As unbelievable as it may seem, everything that happens to you, every joy, every disappointment, every delay, every breakthrough, is not the result of luck, fate, or coincidence, but the precise mathematical outcome of a spiritual law more exact than gravity itself. Right now, as you listen to these words, you are living inside a universe that responds to your every thought, your every belief, your every emotional vibration with the precision of a cosmic computer. Nothing is random, nothing is accidental, nothing is meaningless. Every moment of your existence is the perfect reflection of the consciousness that created it. This isn't philosophy. This isn't wishful thinking. This is the fundamental truth that Emmet Fox spent his life teaching, proving and demonstrating to millions of people around the world. A truth so revolutionary that it shatters everything you've been taught about how life works. For too long we've been told that we're victims of circumstance, that life happens to us, that we're at the mercy of forces beyond our control. We've been taught to believe in luck, in chance, in random events that shape our destiny. But what if all of that is a lie? What if the real truth is that you are not the victim of your circumstances, but the creator of them? Emmet Fox discovered something that changed everything. He found that behind the apparent chaos of life lies a divine mind, an infinite intelligence that governs every atom, every thought, every event with perfect order and love. And more importantly, he discovered that you are not separate from this mind. You are part of it. You are expressing it. You are using it every moment of every day, whether you know it or not. This divine mind doesn't play favorites. It doesn't judge. It doesn't punish or reward. It simply responds. Like a cosmic mirror, it reflects back to you exactly what you give it. Think thoughts of lack, and it creates experiences of scarcity. Think thoughts of love, and it manifests relationships of harmony. Think thoughts of fear, and it produces circumstances that match that fear. The law is always working. It never stops. It never sleeps. It never makes mistakes. And once you understand how it works, once you learn to align yourself with it, consciously and deliberately, your life becomes a masterpiece of divine order instead of a series of random events. You will learn the spiritual rules that control every minute of your life in the following hour. You'll discover why everything in your life is a perfect reflection of your consciousness, why nothing is random, and, above all, how to apply this understanding to build the life you really want. This goes beyond theory. Millions of lives have been changed by this common sense. You won't have the same perspective on your life after we're done. You'll realize the spiritual law that underpins every experience, the divine order that underpins every event, and the boundless intelligence that has been directing your actions the entire time. Are you prepared to learn that nothing happens at random? Let's then start this voyage inside God's own thoughts. Chapter 1, Divine Mind, the intelligence that governs all. The universe is ruled by a single force. There is just one power, not two or many. The key to comprehending everything else about how life actually functions is to grasp this one truth, which Emmet Fox dubbed the divine mind. This is not some far-off God sitting on a cloud-top throne watching over your every action. It is the limitless intelligence that develops the flowers, spins the planets in their orbits, beats your heart, and produces the complex atomic dance that is your physical body. It is the life that creates life, the mind that creates minds, and the consciousness that creates consciousness. And here's the revolutionary part. You are not separate from this divine mind. You are not outside of it looking in. You are part of it. You are an individualized expression of it. You are divine mind thinking, feeling, and experiencing itself through the unique perspective that is you. Think about what this means. If there is only one mind and you are part of that mind, then every thought you think is a thought in divine mind. Every belief you hold is a belief in divine mind. Every emotion you feel is an emotion in divine mind. And since divine mind is the creative force of the universe, your thoughts, beliefs, and emotions are literally creating your reality moment by moment. This is why Emmet Fox taught that you are not the victim of circumstances but the creator of them. Your outer world is nothing more than the reflection of your inner world. Your experiences are the mirror of your consciousness. Your life is the perfect expression of what you've been thinking, believing, and feeling, whether consciously or unconsciously. But here's where most people get confused. They look at their lives and say, "But I didn't choose this. I didn't want this problem, this illness, this financial struggle." And they're right on the surface level. Consciously, they didn't choose these things. But unconsciously, through their habitual patterns of thought, their deep-seated beliefs, their emotional reactions, they created the very conditions they're experiencing. Divine mind doesn't judge these thoughts as good or bad. It simply responds to them. It takes whatever you give it and creates experiences that match. If you consistently think thoughts of worry, divine mind creates circumstances that give you something to worry about. If you consistently think thoughts of gratitude, divine mind creates circumstances that give you more to be grateful for. This is not punishment or reward. This is simply law. Just as the law of gravity doesn't judge whether you step off a cliff intentionally or accidentally, the law of mind doesn't judge whether your thoughts are conscious or unconscious. It simply responds with mathematical precision to whatever you're broadcasting. Emmet Fox discovered this truth through years of study, prayer, and practical application. He saw that when people changed their thinking, their lives changed. When they aligned their consciousness with divine principles, their circumstances aligned with divine order. When they stopped fighting against the law and started working with it, miracles became natural. He taught that divine mind is always seeking to express itself as harmony, health, abundance, and love. These are not special gifts reserved for a chosen few, but the natural state of being when consciousness is aligned with its source. Disease, poverty, conflict, and suffering are not punishments from God, but the natural result of consciousness that has forgotten its divine nature. The good news is that you can remember, you can realign. You can return to the truth of what you are and begin to experience life as it was meant to be experienced. But first, you must accept the fundamental truth that there is only one power and you are part of it. This means taking complete responsibility for your life. Not blame, not guilt, not shame, but responsibility. The recognition that if you created your current circumstances through your consciousness, you can create new circumstances through new consciousness. If your thoughts got you here, new thoughts can take you somewhere else. It means understanding that every person in your life, every situation you encounter, every challenge you face is there because some part of your consciousness attracted it. This doesn't mean you're consciously choosing difficult experiences, but it does mean that your overall state of consciousness is creating the conditions for these experiences to occur. But here's the beautiful part. Once you understand this law, you can use it consciously. Instead of being an unconscious creator, you can become a conscious creator. Instead of attracting experiences by default, you can attract experiences by design. Instead of being surprised by what shows up in your life, you can deliberately choose what you want to experience. This is the promise of understanding divine mind. Not that life becomes easy, but that life becomes meaningful. Not that challenges disappear, but that you understand their purpose. Not that you become perfect, but that you become conscious of the perfection that already exists within the apparent imperfection. You don't have to seek out or attain the divine mind. You are what you are. You've always been that way. You can never be anything else. All you need to do is acknowledge it, unite with it, and let it manifest itself in you as the abundance, love, harmony, and health that are your birthright. This realization transforms everything. You stop feeling like a victim of your circumstances and begin to feel like a conscious participant in creation when you realize that you are a part of the one power that rules the universe. You become much more mindful of your ideas once you realize that they are creative energies in the divine mind. You are inspired to raise your consciousness to align with the life you genuinely want when you recognize that your life is the ideal manifestation of your consciousness. This forms the basis of all that Emmet Fox taught. You belong to the one power that exists. From this understanding, everything else follows. Chapter 2. The spiritual law behind every event. Look around your life right now. The job you have, the relationships you're in, the amount of money in your bank account, the state of your health, the place where you live. To most people, these circumstances seem like the result of a complex mix of luck, timing, other people's decisions, and random events beyond their control. But Emmet Fox saw something different. He saw the precise operation of spiritual law. Every single circumstance in your life exists because it matches something in your consciousness. Not your conscious desires necessarily, but your overall mental and emotional state. Your fears, your beliefs, your expectations, your habitual patterns of thought, your deep-seated assumptions about life, yourself, and what's possible for you. This is what Fox called the law of mind action. It states that thoughts are things, that consciousness is creative, and that the outer world is always the perfect reflection of the inner world. Not sometimes, not usually, but always, without exception. This law is more reliable than any physical law because it operates on the level of cause, while physical laws operate on the level of effect. But here's where it gets interesting. Most people are completely unconscious of what they're really thinking and feeling most of the time. They're aware of their surface thoughts, their conscious desires, their stated goals, but underneath, running like background software, are the real programs that are creating their reality, their unconscious beliefs, their suppressed emotions, their inherited patterns of thought, their unexamined assumptions about life. For example, someone might consciously desire financial abundance while unconsciously believing that money is the root of all evil, that rich people are greedy, that they don't deserve wealth, or that spiritual people should be poor. The conscious desire and the unconscious belief are in conflict, and guess which one wins? The unconscious belief, every time. Because the unconscious mind is far more powerful than the conscious mind in terms of creative force. This is why Fox emphasized the importance of examining your beliefs, not just your desires. He taught that you don't get what you want in life. You get what you believe you deserve, what you expect to receive, what you're vibrationally aligned with. Your beliefs are the real creative force, not your wishes. The law of substitution is another key principle Fox taught. It states that you cannot get rid of a negative thought by fighting it directly. You can only replace it with a positive thought. The mind cannot hold two contradictory thoughts at the same time, so when you fill your consciousness with thoughts of health, the thoughts of sickness must leave. When you fill your consciousness with thoughts of abundance, the thoughts of lack must leave. This is why Fox always emphasized focusing on what you want, not on what you don't want. When you focus on a problem, you're feeding it with your attention, your energy, your creative force. You're actually making it stronger. But when you focus on the solution, on the desired outcome, on the divine order that you want to see manifest, you're withdrawing your creative energy from the problem and investing it in the solution. But here's what most people don't understand. This law works, whether you believe in it or not. You're using it right now in this moment, whether you're conscious of it or not. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every belief you hold is sending out a vibrational signal that the universe responds to with matching circumstances. The person who constantly worries about their health is using the law to create health problems. The person who constantly fears financial lack is using the law to create financial struggle. The person who constantly expects to be disappointed is using the law to create disappointing experiences. They're not doing this consciously, but they're doing it nonetheless. This is why Fox taught that there are no victims, only unconscious creators. This isn't meant to blame people for their problems, but to empower them with the knowledge that if they created their current circumstances unconsciously, they can create new circumstances consciously. Every delay you experience is the result of some form of resistance in your consciousness. Every rejection you receive is the reflection of some form of self-rejection. Every conflict you encounter is the mirror of some internal conflict. Every limitation you face is the expression of some limiting belief you hold. But the reverse is also true. Every success you achieve is the result of some form of alignment in your consciousness. Every opportunity that comes your way is the reflection of some form of openness and expectation. Every harmonious relationship you enjoy is the mirror of some internal harmony. Every breakthrough you experience is the expression of some expanded belief about what's possible. This doesn't mean that you're consciously choosing every detail of your experience. It means that your overall state of consciousness is creating the general conditions of your life, and specific events arise within those conditions according to the same law. For instance, if you have a consciousness of lack, you might experience that lack as unemployment, or as a low-paying job, or as unexpected expenses, or as investment losses. The specific form the lack takes might seem random, but the underlying condition of lack is the direct result of a consciousness of lack. Similarly, if you have a consciousness of abundance, you might experience that abundance as a promotion, or as a new business opportunity, or as an unexpected windfall, or as increased income from existing sources. Again, the specific form might seem random, but the underlying condition of abundance is the direct result of a consciousness of abundance. This is why Fox taught that you must work on your consciousness, not just on your circumstances. Trying to change your outer world without changing your inner world is like trying to change your reflection in a mirror without changing what you're doing in front of the mirror. It's futile. But when you change your consciousness, when you align your thoughts and beliefs and emotions with what you want to experience, the outer world has no choice but to change to match. This is law. This is how the universe works. This is why nothing is random. Understanding this law changes everything about how you approach life. Instead of trying to manipulate circumstances, you work on your consciousness. Instead of blaming others for your problems, you take responsibility for your creative power. Instead of feeling like a victim of random events, you recognize yourself as the conscious creator of your experience. This is the spiritual law behind every event in your life. Once you understand it, you can use it. Once you use it consciously, your life becomes a deliberate creation instead of a series of accidents. Chapter 3. You can't change the law, but you can use it. Imagine trying to argue with gravity. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a cliff, shaking your fist at the sky, demanding that the law of gravity make an exception for you just this once. Sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Yet this is exactly what most people do with spiritual law every day of their lives. They pray for abundance while thinking thoughts of lack. They ask for healing while focusing on their symptoms. They desire love while harboring resentment. They want success while believing they don't deserve it. And then they wonder why their prayers aren't answered, why their affirmations don't work, why their lives don't change. Emmet Fox understood something that most people miss. Spiritual law is just as impersonal and just as reliable as physical law. It doesn't care about your personality, your history, your excuses, or your explanations. It simply responds to the vibrational frequency you're broadcasting through your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs. You cannot change this law. You cannot negotiate with it. You cannot convince it to make exceptions. But you can learn to work with it instead of against it. You can align yourself with it instead of fighting it. You can use it consciously instead of being used by it unconsciously. This is what Fox meant when he talked about obedience to law. Not blind submission to external authority, but intelligent cooperation with the way the universe actually works. When you understand how the law operates and align yourself with it, what others call miracles become natural results. The first step in using the law consciously is to accept complete responsibility for your current circumstances. Not blame, not guilt, not shame, but responsibility. The recognition that your life is the perfect reflection of your consciousness, and that if you want different results, you need different consciousness. This is often the hardest step, because it requires giving up the victim mentality that keeps so many people stuck. It's easier to blame your problems on your parents, your boss, the economy, the government, or bad luck, than to accept that you've been unconsciously creating your own experience. But until you accept this responsibility, you remain powerless to change anything. The second step is to become conscious of what you're really thinking and feeling most of the time. Most people are completely unconscious of their mental and emotional patterns. They're aware of their surface thoughts, but they're oblivious to the deeper currents of belief and expectation that are actually creating their reality. Fox taught that you must become a detective of your own consciousness. Start paying attention to your automatic thoughts, your emotional reactions, your assumptions about life. Notice what you expect to happen in different situations. Observe the stories you tell yourself about why things are the way they are. Listen to the language you use when you talk about your life, your relationships, your health, your finances. These unconscious patterns are like computer programs running in the background of your mind, creating your reality according to their programming. Until you become aware of them, you cannot change them. But once you see them clearly, you can begin to reprogram them. The third step is to deliberately choose thoughts that align with what you want to experience, not with what you're currently experiencing. This is where most people get confused. They think they should think positive thoughts about their current negative circumstances. But Fox taught something different. Think about the outcome you desire as if it were already true. If you want health, don't think positive thoughts about your illness. Think thoughts of perfect health. Visualize yourself healthy, strong, vibrant. Feel the emotions you would feel if you were completely well. Speak as if health were your natural state. Act as if your body were already healed. If you want abundance, don't think positive thoughts about your current lack. Think thoughts of prosperity. Visualize yourself financially free. Feel the emotions you would feel if money were no object. Speak as if abundance were your natural state. Act as if you already had everything you needed. This isn't denial of current circumstances. It's recognition that current circumstances are the result of past consciousness, and that new consciousness will create new circumstances. You're not pretending that problems don't exist. You're withdrawing your creative energy from them and investing it in solutions. Fox called this scientific prayer because it follows the exact same principles as any other science. You identify the desired outcome, you apply the correct method, and you get predictable results. The method is aligning your consciousness with your desired outcome through thought, feeling, visualization, and action. But here's the crucial part. You must persist in this new consciousness even when external circumstances haven't changed yet. This is where most people fail. They try the new thinking for a few days or weeks, and when they don't see immediate results, they go back to their old patterns of thought. But spiritual law works like physical law. When you plant a seed in the ground, you don't dig it up every day to see if it's growing. You water it, give it sunlight, and trust the process. Similarly, when you plant a new thought seed in consciousness, you must nurture it with consistent attention and trust the law to bring it to manifestation. Fox taught that there are 3 stages to every demonstration. First, the mental stage, where you get clear about what you want and align your consciousness with it. Second, the spiritual stage, where you release your desire to divine mind and trust the law to work. Third, the physical stage, where the desired outcome manifests in your external experience. The majority of people attempt to move directly to the third stage, bypassing the first 2. They don't want to put in the mental and spiritual effort to achieve the physical outcomes. However, that is not how the law operates. The first step is to establish the internal circumstances that correspond with the exterior experiences you wish to have. Fox underlined the significance of regular spiritual practice for this reason, as a training of consciousness, not as a religious ceremony. You must train your mind through mental training, just as you train your body through physical activity. Developing the mental discipline required to apply spiritual law consciously can be accomplished by daily prayer, meditation, affirmation, and visualization. The law never stops functioning. Your future experiences are being created by your consciousness right now. The key is whether you're working with or against the law, not if it's functioning. Whether you use it intentionally or inadvertently. Whether you're making something intentionally or accidentally. Everything changes when you realize that while you cannot alter the law, you can make use of it. You begin working on your consciousness instead of fighting your surroundings. You begin to align with the organic flow of creation and cease attempting to impose results. You become a conscious participant in the divine order that governs everything instead of a victim of chance happenings. This is how Fox's lessons are put into practice. The scientific approach applied to the field of consciousness, not mystical speculation. Your life transforms from a sequence of unintentional reactions into a work of conscious creativity when you learn to apply spiritual law with the same intentionality that you do physical law. The law awaits your application. It is infinitely intelligent, infinitely powerful, and infinitely loving. It only requires your willing cooperation. Your willingness to match your desired experience with your ideas, feelings, and beliefs is all that is needed. You cannot change the law, but you can change your relationship to it. And when you do, you discover that the same law that seemed to be working against you was actually waiting to work for you all along. Chapter 4. The Golden Key. The Law That Never Fails. In all of Emmet Fox's teachings, no single method has helped more people, solved more problems, or demonstrated more clearly the power of spiritual law than what he called the Golden Key. It's elegantly simple, profoundly effective, and based on the most fundamental principle of consciousness: what you focus on expands. The Golden Key is this: when faced with any difficulty, any problem, any challenge, stop thinking about the problem and think about God instead. That's it. That's the entire method. But don't let its simplicity fool you. This is one of the most powerful spiritual techniques ever discovered, and when applied correctly, it never fails. Why does it work? Because your attention is your creative power. Whatever you focus on, you energize. Whatever you think about, you strengthen. Whatever you give your mental and emotional energy to, you invite more of into your experience. When you focus on a problem, you're actually feeding it with your consciousness, making it bigger, stronger, more persistent. But when you withdraw your attention from the problem and place it on God, on divine order, on the perfect solution that already exists in divine mind, you stop feeding the problem and start feeding the solution. You stop creating more of what you don't want and start creating more of what you do want. Fox discovered this principle through years of practical application. He found that people who could successfully turn their attention away from their difficulties and focus instead on the presence and power of God would invariably find that their problems dissolved, often in ways they never could have imagined. But here's what most people don't understand about the Golden Key. It's not about positive thinking. It's not about denying that problems exist. It's not about pretending everything is fine when it's not. It's about recognizing that problems exist on the level of effect, while solutions exist on the level of cause. And the level of cause is consciousness itself. When you think about God, you're not thinking about some distant deity who may or may not decide to help you. You're connecting with the infinite intelligence that is the source of all solutions, the divine order that is the reality behind all appearances, the perfect love that dissolves all fear and limitation. God, in Fox's teaching, is not a person, but a principle. The principle of infinite good, perfect order, unlimited possibility, and unconditional love. When you think about God, you're aligning your consciousness with these qualities. You're tuning your mental radio to the frequency of divine perfection instead of the frequency of human limitation. Let me give you a practical example of how this works. Suppose you're facing a financial crisis. Your natural tendency is to think about the problem, how much money you owe, how little money you have, how impossible the situation seems, how worried you are about the future. Every moment you spend thinking these thoughts, you're using your creative power to strengthen the very conditions you want to change. But if you apply the Golden Key, you stop thinking about the financial problem and start thinking about God as infinite supply, as the source of all abundance, as the divine intelligence that knows exactly how to provide for your every need. You don't think about how God might solve your problem. You simply rest in the awareness of God's infinite capacity to provide. As you do this, something remarkable happens. Your consciousness shifts from lack to abundance, from fear to faith, from limitation to possibility. And as your consciousness shifts, your circumstances begin to shift to match. Opportunities appear that you hadn't noticed before. Ideas come that you hadn't thought of. People show up who can help in unexpected ways. Solutions emerge that you never could have planned or predicted. This isn't magic, this is law. When you align your consciousness with divine abundance, you become a magnet for abundant experiences. When you align your consciousness with divine order, you attract orderly solutions to chaotic situations. When you align your consciousness with divine love, you draw loving relationships and harmonious circumstances into your life. But the golden key requires practice, especially when you're in the middle of a crisis. Your natural tendency is to think about the problem, to analyze it, to worry about it, to discuss it with others. These are all ways of feeding the problem with your attention. The golden key requires the discipline to consistently redirect your attention away from the problem and toward God. Fox taught that you should apply the golden key as often as necessary throughout the day. Every time you catch yourself thinking about the problem, immediately turn your thoughts to God. Don't fight the problem thoughts. Simply replace them with God thoughts. This is the law of substitution in action. Some individuals are concerned that this is careless and that they must consider their issues in order to find solutions. However, Fox found the reverse. You get more perplexed and overwhelmed the more you consider issues. You get clearer and more at peace the more you think about God. And appropriate action naturally arises from this feeling of calm and clarity. Any kind of issue can be solved with the golden key, including marital problems, health issues, financial hardships, professional problems, family disputes, legal issues, and emotional discomfort. The idea is always the same. Focus on the solution by thinking about God and stop feeding your attention on the problem. To think about God is a question that needs clarification. Fox made a number of recommendations. You may see God as enveloping you and all those concerned in the circumstance with boundless love. God might be viewed as having perfect intellect, understanding exactly what must occur and how to make it happen. You may believe that God has unbounded power and can change any circumstance, no matter how hopeless it may appear. You might repeat simple statements like, God is here, God is in charge, God knows the way, all is well. You might visualize divine light filling the situation, dissolving all discord and revealing the perfect solution. You might simply rest in the feeling of God's presence, without trying to think anything specific at all. The key is to find an approach that feels natural and meaningful to you, and then to practice it consistently. The more you use the golden key, the easier it becomes to shift your attention from problems to solutions, from fear to faith, from limitation to possibility. Fox shared countless stories of people who used the golden key to overcome seemingly impossible situations. Financial ruin transformed into prosperity, terminal illnesses healed completely, broken relationships restored to harmony, legal battles resolved in everyone's favor, lost opportunities returned in better form. But perhaps the most important result of using the golden key is not the external changes it produces, but the internal transformation it creates. As you practice turning away from problems and toward God, you develop an unshakable faith in the power of divine order. You learn to trust that no matter what appears to be happening on the surface, underneath there is a perfect intelligence working everything out for the highest good. This doesn't mean that challenges disappear from your life. It means that you develop the spiritual tools to handle any challenge that arises. You learn to see problems not as evidence that something is wrong, but as opportunities to apply spiritual law and demonstrate divine power. The golden key is called the law that never fails because it's based on the most fundamental principle of existence. Consciousness is creative, and what you focus on expands. When you focus on God, you expand the presence and power of God in your experience. When you focus on divine order, you expand order in your circumstances. When you focus on infinite possibility, you expand the possibilities available to you. This is not a technique to be used only in emergencies. It's a way of life. The more you practice thinking about God instead of problems, the fewer problems you'll have to think about. The more you align your consciousness with divine perfection, the more your life will reflect that perfection. The golden key is your direct connection to the infinite intelligence that governs the universe. It's your way of plugging into the divine power that can transform any situation. It's your method for aligning with the spiritual law that never fails. Try it now. Whatever challenge you're facing, Whatever problem is on your mind, stop thinking about it and think about God instead. Feel the shift in your consciousness. Notice how your energy changes. Observe how your perspective transforms. This is the golden key in action, and it's available to you every moment of every day. Chapter 5. The True Meaning of the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus wasn't creating religious laws or providing a moral lecture when he gave the Sermon on the Mount. Emmet Fox claimed that he was unveiling the most profound mysteries of spiritual law, the underlying rules that control the way that consciousness produces reality. Each and every word, phrase, and lesson in this outstanding talk is essential to comprehending the true nature of the cosmos. After years of studying the Sermon on the Mount, Fox's interpretation transformed the way millions of people viewed metaphysics and Christianity. Regardless of one's theological background, he saw that Jesus was teaching spiritual science, practical psychology, and the laws of thought. For instance, consider the Beatitudes. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. This is typically interpreted as a compliment to humility or poverty. However, Fox noticed something more profound. Being poor in spirit refers to being devoid of ego, free from the confining ideas and erroneous beliefs that obstruct the flow of divine goodness. You can access the kingdom of heaven, the region of limitless possibilities, once your mind is free of mental clutter. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Grieving for the dead is not the point of this. It's about lamenting the passing of your limiting ideas, incorrect beliefs, and outdated thought patterns that have held you back. Divine comfort, or the serenity that results from being in harmony with truth, takes the place of thoughts that no longer serve you when you are willing to let them go. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Being meek is not a sign of weakness. Rather, it is the power that results from trusting that divine law will operate through you without the need to exert pressure. You inherit the earth, that is, you acquire control over your surroundings via awareness rather than coercion, when you cease attempting to control events and begin to align with spiritual principles. Every beatitude follows this pattern. Each one describes a state of consciousness and the natural result that flows from that state. This is spiritual law in action. Inner states create outer experiences. Then Jesus gives what Fox considered the most important teaching in the entire sermon: judge not, that ye be not judged. This isn't a moral commandment about being nice to people. It's a statement of absolute spiritual law. Whatever you judge in others, you create in your own experience. Whatever you condemn in the world around you, you attract into your own life. Why? Because judgment is a form of focused attention, and attention is creative power. When you judge someone as dishonest, you're thinking thoughts of dishonesty, and those thoughts create experiences of dishonesty in your life. When you judge someone as lacking, you're thinking thoughts of lack, and those thoughts create experiences of lack in your circumstances. This is why Fox taught that you must see the good in everyone and everything, not because it's morally right, but because it's scientifically accurate. When you see good, you create good. When you see perfection behind appearances, you call forth that perfection in your experience. Agree with thine adversary quickly, whiles thou art in the way with him. This seems like strange advice until you understand it metaphysically. Your adversary is any negative condition in your life. To agree with your adversary means to stop fighting against unwanted circumstances and instead acknowledge the spiritual law that created them. If you're experiencing lack, don't fight against the lack. Acknowledge that your consciousness of lack created the experience of lack, and then change your consciousness to abundance. If you're experiencing illness, don't fight against the illness. Acknowledge that some pattern of thought created the condition, and then change that pattern to one of health and wholeness. Fighting against problems only strengthens them, because resistance is a form of attention, and attention feeds whatever it focuses on. But when you agree with your adversary by acknowledging the law behind the appearance, you can then work with the law to create different appearances. The Lord's Prayer, according to Fox, is a complete course in applied metaphysics. Our Father which art in heaven establishes that there is one source of all good, and that source is not material but spiritual. Hallowed be thy name means to recognize the sacred nature of divine principle. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, is an affirmation that divine order can manifest in physical experience. Give us this day our daily bread is not a request for food, but an acknowledgement that divine substance is the source of all supply. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors recognizes that forgiveness is a law. As you forgive others, you free yourself from the negative conditions that unforgiveness creates. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil, is a recognition that when consciousness is aligned with divine principle, it naturally avoids the temptation to think limiting thoughts and is delivered from the evil that such thoughts create. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever, affirms that all creative power belongs to divine principle, not to human will or effort. It's possible that the sermon's most revolutionary lesson is, resist not evil. This contradicts every human instinct, societal lesson, and accepted method of problem solving. However, Fox saw that evil's power comes from opposition. You're giving something your focus, your vitality, and your creative energy when you oppose it. In fact, you're making the obstacle you're attempting to overcome stronger. Jesus taught an alternative strategy for dealing with evil. But whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also. Being a doormat or putting up with abuse is not the point of this. Since your inner calm is your creative strength, it's about preventing outside events from upsetting it. Someone or something is attempting to induce you to think, feel, and vibrate at their frequency in order to incite you to wrath, fear, or hatred. Reacting gives them control over your consciousness, and thus your capacity for creativity. You may still be in charge of your own creative force, though, if you keep your peace, your love, and your harmony with divine principle. Love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. This isn't moral advice, it's practical psychology. When you love your enemies, you're not doing it for their benefit, but for your own. Love is the highest vibration, the most creative force. When you maintain love regardless of external circumstances, you maintain your connection to infinite creative power. When you bless those who curse you, you're not being noble, you're being scientific. Blessing is a form of positive thinking directed toward another person. When you bless someone, you're seeing the good in them, and what you see in others, you strengthen in yourself. When you see good in difficult people, you develop the ability to see good in difficult circumstances. One basic idea underlies the entire Sermon on the Mount. Consciousness is creative, and you have total control over it, independent of the outside world. You cannot be forced to think limited thoughts by anyone. Nobody has the power to make you feel bad. Nobody can force you to believe in separation, fear, or lack. You are the absolute master of your own country, which is your awareness. You have complete control over your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. Furthermore, your decisions regarding your inner world impact how you perceive the outside world, since consciousness generates experience. This is why Jesus said, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you." The kingdom of God is consciousness aligned with divine principle. When you seek first to align your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs with spiritual truth, all the things you need in the physical world are naturally added to your experience. Fox taught that the Sermon on the Mount is not a set of impossible ideals but a practical manual for conscious living. Every teaching, when properly understood, is a technique for aligning consciousness with spiritual law. Every principle, when correctly applied, produces demonstrable results in daily life. Therefore all things whatsoever ye would that men should do to you, do ye even so to them. For this is the law and the prophets. A common misunderstanding about the Golden Rule is that it is a moral precept about being kind to others. Fox, however, interpreted it as a declaration of an unchangeable spiritual law. What you put out comes back to you. What you give out comes back to you, and what you express in your mind shows up in your reality. Give love if you want it. Show respect if you want it. Give abundantly if you desire abundance. Give forgiveness if you wish to receive it. It's accurate from a scientific standpoint, not because it's ethically correct. Everything you project into the cosmos is reflected back to you like a mirror. The story of the wise man who built his home on a rock and the stupid guy who built his home on sand comes at the end of the Sermon on the Mount. The knowledge that experience is produced by consciousness is the rock or spiritual principle. The sand represents material thought, the conviction that your life is dictated by outside forces. When you base your life on spiritual knowledge, you know that your stability comes from inside, not from the outside, so no storm can shake you. Because you assume that your well-being depends on factors that are beyond your control. Every change in your circumstances threatens your peace of mind when you base your existence on materialistic thinking. Jesus was preaching the same spiritual rules that control everything, according to Fox's understanding of the Sermon on the Mount. Whether or not a person is religious, these laws apply to everyone who follows them. Neither Christian nor Jewish laws, nor any other type of religious law, apply to them. Consciousness generates reality according to these universal laws. Gaining insight into the Sermon on the Mount provides you with a useful guide for leading a conscious life. In order to transform your life from a sequence of haphazard occurrences into a manifestation of divine order, it teaches you how to match your ideas, feelings, and beliefs with spiritual principles. Here is the deeper meaning behind the words. You are a creator of circumstances rather than a victim of them, and you have access to the means of conscious creation at all times. Chapter 6. How to trust the law when everything goes wrong. This is where the rubber meets the road in spiritual understanding. It's easy to believe in divine order when everything is going well, when your prayers seem to be answered, when life is flowing smoothly. But what about when everything falls apart? What about when you've been applying spiritual principles faithfully and your world still crumbles around you? What about when you're doing everything right and everything goes wrong? This is the ultimate test of spiritual maturity, and it's where most people abandon their faith in spiritual law. They conclude that the principles don't work, that God has abandoned them, that they're victims of forces beyond their control. But Emmet Fox taught something radically different. Apparent failure is often the prelude to breakthrough, and what looks like divine abandonment is actually divine redirection. Fox understood that spiritual law operates on a much larger scale than human perception can grasp. What appears to be a setback from the limited perspective of human consciousness may actually be a setup for something far better from the unlimited perspective of divine mind. What seems like a closed door may actually be protection from a path that would have led to greater difficulty. Fox's favorite illustration of this idea is found in the biblical account of Joseph. After being wrongly convicted of attempting to rape him, Joseph spent years in prison after being sold into slavery by his own brothers. As far as humans were concerned, his life was a string of catastrophes. He was destined to become Egypt's second most powerful man and save his family and people from starvation, and every apparent setback was simply preparing him for that fate. The hardships Joseph was facing prevented him from seeing the wider picture. Beyond his comprehension, he had to have faith that a spiritual intelligence was directing events. When he was able to tell his brothers, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good," that trust was finally validated. This is the perspective Fox taught his students to maintain during difficult times. When everything seems to be going wrong, instead of concluding that spiritual law has failed, ask yourself, what is divine mind trying to accomplish through this experience? How might this apparent setback be setting me up for something better? What am I being redirected away from, and what am I being redirected toward? Sometimes what appears to be failure is actually divine mind's way of removing you from a situation that would have limited your growth or prevented you from fulfilling your true purpose. The job you lose might have been keeping you from the career you were meant to have. The relationship that ends might have been preventing you from meeting your true life partner. The business that fails might have been blocking you from discovering your real calling. Fox taught that divine mind always seeks the highest good for everyone involved, but the highest good is not always what human consciousness thinks it wants. Sometimes the highest good requires temporary discomfort, apparent loss, or seeming failure in order to create space for something infinitely better. This doesn't mean you should passively accept negative circumstances or stop working to improve your life. It means you should maintain your spiritual practices, continue to align your consciousness with what you desire, and trust that divine mind is working everything out in ways that your limited human perspective cannot see. The key is to distinguish between the appearance and the reality. The appearance is what your physical senses report. The bank account is empty. The relationship is over. The diagnosis is serious. The business is failing. The reality is that divine mind is infinite intelligence, infinite love, infinite power, and it is always working for your highest good even when you can't see how. Fox taught a powerful technique for maintaining faith during difficult times. Instead of focusing on the problem or trying to figure out how things will work out, focus on the character of divine mind. Remind yourself that divine mind is perfect love, so it cannot will anything harmful for you. Divine mind is infinite intelligence, so it knows exactly how to resolve any situation. Divine mind is unlimited power, so no problem is too big for it to handle. This is not denial of current circumstances, but recognition of the spiritual reality behind all circumstances. You acknowledge what appears to be happening while maintaining faith in what is really happening on the level of divine mind. Another crucial principle Fox taught is that delay is not denial. Just because your demonstration hasn't manifested yet doesn't mean it's not coming. Just because your prayers haven't been answered in the way you expected doesn't mean they haven't been heard. Divine timing is perfect timing, even when it doesn't match human timing. Sometimes divine mind delays a demonstration because you're not ready to receive it yet. Sometimes the delay is necessary to prepare the perfect conditions for manifestation. Sometimes what you're asking for is coming, but in a form so much better than what you originally envisioned that it takes longer to arrange. Fox often told the story of a woman who prayed for years to marry a particular man. When he finally married someone else, she was devastated and felt that God had abandoned her. But a year later, she met and married a man who was so much more compatible with her that she realized divine mind had protected her from a marriage that would have made her miserable. The challenge during difficult times is to maintain your spiritual practices when they seem to be producing no results. This is where most people fail. They pray and affirm and visualize when things are going well, but they abandon these practices when things get tough. But Fox taught that this is exactly when spiritual practices are most important. When everything is going wrong externally, you must work even harder to maintain alignment internally. When circumstances are chaotic, you must be even more diligent about keeping your thoughts focused on divine order. When appearances suggest that spiritual law isn't working, you must deepen your faith in the invisible reality behind all appearances. This is not easy. It requires tremendous spiritual discipline to maintain faith when everything in your experience seems to contradict that faith. But this is how spiritual muscle is built. This is how you develop the unshakable trust in divine mind that allows you to remain peaceful and confident regardless of external circumstances. Fox argued that if you maintain the right attitude, every apparent setback presents an opportunity for equal or even greater achievement. If you respond to setbacks with bitterness, resentment, or despair, you are planting the seeds for future adversity. But if you respond with optimism, gratitude, and hope, you plant the seeds of future success. Whether or not you will experience hardship is not the question. How you will react to them is the question. Will you take advantage of them to enhance your spiritual understanding and grow in your faith, or will you use them as proof that spiritual law is ineffective? Keep in mind that everyone who has contributed significantly to human advancement, including great spiritual teachers, has experienced times of apparent failure and desertion. Jesus was crucified. Buddha struggled for years before he became enlightened. For 40 years, Moses wandered in the wilderness. However, what seemed to be failure in each instance was actually a prelude to their eventual success. Your difficult times are not evidence that you're on the wrong path. They may be evidence that you're on exactly the right path. and that divine mind is preparing you for something so wonderful that you need to be strengthened and purified to receive it. Trust the law, especially when everything goes wrong. This is when your faith is tested, refined, and ultimately proven. This is when you discover that divine mind is not just a fair-weather friend, but a constant companion who never leaves you or forsakes you, no matter how dark the night may seem. Chapter 7. Living as if nothing is random. Now that you understand the truth, now that you know nothing is random and everything is the perfect expression of spiritual law, how do you live differently? How do you move through the world with this knowledge? How do you embody this understanding in your daily experience? Living as if nothing is random means approaching every moment, every encounter, every circumstance with the awareness that it contains a message, a lesson, or an opportunity for growth. It means seeing the divine intelligence behind all appearances, recognizing the perfect order within apparent chaos, and trusting that everything is working together for your highest good. This doesn't mean becoming passive or fatalistic. It doesn't mean accepting negative circumstances without working to change them. It means understanding that your power to change circumstances comes not from fighting against them, but from aligning your consciousness with what you want to experience instead. When you truly understand that nothing is random, you stop being surprised by what shows up in your life. You recognize that every person you meet, every situation you encounter, every challenge you face is there because some aspect of your consciousness attracted it. This gives you tremendous power because it means you can change what shows up by changing your consciousness. You begin to see every experience as feedback from the universe about the state of your consciousness. If you're experiencing harmony in your relationships, it's because you have harmony in your consciousness. If you're experiencing abundance in your finances, it's because you have abundance consciousness. If you're experiencing health in your body, it's because you have health consciousness. But the reverse is also true. If you're experiencing conflict, lack, or illness, it's because some part of your consciousness is aligned with these conditions. This isn't about blame or guilt. It's about empowerment. If your consciousness created your current circumstances, your consciousness can create different circumstances. Living as if nothing is random means taking complete responsibility for your experience while maintaining complete compassion for yourself and others. You recognize that everyone is doing the best they can with their current level of consciousness, and that includes you. You don't judge yourself for past mistakes or current limitations. You simply work to expand your consciousness so you can create better experiences. You begin to interpret events differently. Instead of seeing problems as evidence that something is wrong, you see them as opportunities to apply spiritual law and demonstrate divine power. Instead of seeing delays as frustrations, you see them as divine timing working to arrange perfect conditions. Instead of seeing challenges as punishments, you see them as invitations to grow stronger and wiser. This shift in perception changes everything about how you feel and how you respond to life. When you know that everything is working for your good, even when you can't see how, you maintain peace in the midst of chaos. When you trust that divine mind is orchestrating all events for the highest good of everyone involved, you stop worrying about outcomes and start focusing on aligning your consciousness with what you desire. You develop what Fox called spiritual perception, the ability to see beyond appearances to the spiritual reality behind them. You look at a person who seems difficult and see the divine nature that is their true identity. You look at a situation that seems hopeless and see the perfect solution that already exists in divine mind. You look at a problem that seems insurmountable and see the opportunity for growth and demonstration that it represents. Living as if nothing is random also means paying attention to the subtle guidance that is constantly available to you. When you understand that you are part of divine mind, you realize that divine mind is always communicating with you through intuition, inspiration, synchronicities, and what others might call coincidences. You begin to notice the patterns in your life, the recurring themes, the messages that come through multiple channels. You pay attention to your dreams, your hunches, your sudden insights. You recognize that these are not random mental events, but communications from the infinite intelligence that is your true source. You begin to place greater faith in your inner guidance than in outside authorities. You learn to discern between the voice of divine mind, which always talks of possibilities and love, and the voice of fear, which always speaks of danger and limitation. You base your choices more on spiritual values than outward looks. This does not imply being careless or disregarding pragmatic factors. It entails making sensible choices based on a spiritual basis. You faith in divine supply and manage your finances sensibly. Knowing that your real life is spiritual and everlasting, you take good care of your health. You put forth a lot of effort while realizing that the divine mind is the true origin of all success. Living as if nothing is random means maintaining a constant attitude of gratitude and expectation. You're grateful for what you have because you recognize it as the perfect expression of your current consciousness. You're expectant about what's coming because you know that as your consciousness expands, your experiences must expand to match. You stop complaining about circumstances because you understand that complaining is a form of negative prayer that creates more of what you're complaining about. Instead, you focus on what you want to experience and give thanks for it as if it were already manifest. You become more conscious of your words because you understand that words are creative forces. You speak about what you want, not about what you don't want. You describe your life in terms of the ideal you're moving toward, not the problems you're moving away from. Most importantly, you begin to see yourself as a conscious collaborator with divine mind in the ongoing creation of reality. You're not a passive recipient of random events, but an active participant in the divine plan. Your thoughts, your words, your emotions, your actions are all contributing to the collective consciousness of humanity and helping to shape the world we all share. This brings with it a profound sense of responsibility and purpose. You realize that every thought you think, every word you speak, every emotion you feel is not just personal but cosmic. You're not just creating your own reality, you're contributing to the reality that everyone experiences. This makes you much more conscious about the quality of your mental and emotional output. You begin to see your life as a demonstration of spiritual principle. Every challenge you overcome, every goal you achieve, every moment of peace you maintain in the midst of chaos is proof that spiritual law works. Your life becomes a teaching, an example, an inspiration to others who are still learning to trust in the divine order behind all appearances. Living as if nothing is random means developing what Fox called the long view. You understand that your current lifetime is just one chapter in an eternal story, that your soul is on a journey of infinite growth and expansion, and that every experience, pleasant or unpleasant, is contributing to that growth. This perspective helps you maintain equanimity during both good times and difficult times. You enjoy success without becoming attached to it, knowing that it's a temporary expression of your current consciousness. You endure hardship without becoming discouraged, knowing that it's a temporary experience that is serving your ultimate good. You begin to govern your consciousness instead of attempting to control results. You are aware that you cannot control particular outcomes, but you can connect your beliefs, feelings, and ideas with the experiences you wish to have. You take care of the duty of preserving the proper mental and emotional state, leaving the intricacies of manifestation to the divine mind. Perhaps the most freeing part of realizing that nothing is random is the change from attempting to control circumstances to trying to manage consciousness. You begin to feel like a conscious creator, collaborating with limitless intellect, rather than a victim of forces beyond your control. By seeing that the divine mind operates in perfect timing rather than human timing, you learn to be patient with the manifestation process. Through your prayers and thoughts, you sow the seeds of consciousness, and you rely on the law to bring them to bear in the proper manner at the appropriate moment. Seeing the perfection in seemingly imperfection is another aspect of living as though nothing is random. You realize that from the infinite viewpoint of divine mind, something that appears to be a mistake, a failure, or a tragedy, from the constrained perspective of human consciousness, may actually be flawless. Like Joseph in the Bible, you learn to say you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. This should not imply complacency or tolerance for unfair treatment. It entails realizing that if you approach things with the appropriate awareness, even unpleasant events can have constructive uses. Every obstacle is a chance to show your faith. Every failure is an opportunity to demonstrate the effectiveness of spiritual law. Every seeming setback serves as a prelude to bigger success. You begin to live with a sense of adventure and expectation, knowing that divine mind is constantly arranging new opportunities for growth, service, and joy. You wake up each morning wondering what wonderful surprises the day will bring, what new ways divine mind will express itself through your experience. This attitude of positive expectation becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you expect good things to happen, you notice good things that you might have overlooked before. When you look for evidence of divine order, you find it everywhere. When you trust that everything is working for your good, you discover ways that even difficult experiences are serving your highest interests. Living as if nothing is random ultimately means living in a state of constant communion with divine mind. You recognize that you are never alone, never abandoned, never without guidance or support. The infinite intelligence that created the universe is always with you, always working through you, always seeking to express itself as greater good in your experience. This awareness transforms every moment into a sacred opportunity. Every conversation becomes a chance to express divine love. Every decision becomes an opportunity to demonstrate divine wisdom. Every challenge becomes a platform for proving divine power. You stop living in fear because you know that you are held in the arms of infinite love. You stop living in lack because you know that you are connected to infinite supply. You stop living in limitation because you know that you are one with infinite possibility. This is what it means to live as if nothing is random, to move through the world with the unshakable knowledge that you are part of a divine plan, that every moment is meaningful, that every experience is purposeful, and that the same intelligence that governs the stars and planets is governing your life with perfect love and wisdom. When you live this way, your life becomes a demonstration of divine order, a proof that spiritual law works, and an inspiration to others who are still learning to trust in the perfect intelligence that governs all things. Epilogue. The world responds to you. As we reach the end of this journey together, I want you to feel the profound shift that has occurred in your understanding. You began this audiobook believing that life was largely random, that you were at the mercy of circumstances beyond your control, that coincidences were just meaningless accidents. You're ending it with the knowledge that you live in a universe of perfect order, that you are a conscious creator of your experience, and that every moment is meaningful. This isn't just intellectual knowledge. This is a fundamental transformation in how you see yourself and your relationship to the world around you. You now know that you are not a separate being struggling to survive in a hostile universe, but an integral part of the divine intelligence that governs all existence. The world you wake up to tomorrow is the same physical world you've always known, but your relationship to it has changed completely. You now see it as a responsive universe that mirrors back to you exactly what you project into it through your consciousness. You understand that every person you meet, every situation you encounter, every challenge you face is there because some aspect of your consciousness attracted it. This knowledge brings with it tremendous power and tremendous responsibility. You can no longer claim to be a victim of circumstances because you now understand that you are the creator of circumstances. You can no longer blame others for your problems because you now know that your problems are the reflection of your own consciousness. But this isn't a burden, it's the greatest gift you could ever receive. Because if you created your current circumstances through your consciousness, you can create new circumstances through new consciousness. If your thoughts got you here, new thoughts can take you anywhere you want to go. The world responds to you, not to your words, not to your actions, but to your consciousness. It responds to what you really believe, what you really expect, what you really feel worthy of receiving. It responds to the sum total of your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs, whether conscious or unconscious. This means that changing your life is not about changing your circumstances, but about changing your consciousness. It's not about manipulating the external world, but about aligning your internal world with what you want to experience. It's not about forcing outcomes, but about creating the inner conditions that naturally attract the outcomes you desire. Every day, every moment, you are broadcasting a signal through your consciousness, and the universe is responding to that signal with matching experiences. When you broadcast fear, you receive fearful experiences. When you broadcast love, you receive loving experiences. When you broadcast abundance, you receive abundant experiences. When you broadcast limitation, you receive limited experiences. The beautiful thing about understanding this law is that you can change your broadcast at any moment. You don't have to wait for circumstances to change before you can feel differently. You can feel differently right now, and then watch as circumstances change to match your new feeling. This is the secret that Emmet Fox spent his life teaching. The world is not happening to you, it's responding to you. You are not a victim of life. You are the author of life. You are not at the mercy of random events. You are the conscious creator of meaningful experiences. But remember, this understanding comes with responsibility. Now that you know how the law works, you must use it consciously and ethically. You must take responsibility for the signal you're broadcasting and the experiences you're creating, not just for yourself, but for everyone whose life you touch. Your consciousness affects not just your own experience, but the collective experience of humanity. Every thought of love you think contributes to the love in the world. Every thought of peace you hold adds to the peace on the planet. Every moment of joy you experience increases the joy available to all. This is why your personal spiritual development is not selfish but essential. As you raise your consciousness, you help raise the consciousness of the entire human race. As you demonstrate the power of spiritual law in your own life, you make it easier for others to believe in and apply these same principles. The world needs people who understand that nothing is random, who know how to work with spiritual law, who can maintain faith in divine order even when appearances suggest chaos. The world needs people who can see beyond the surface of events to the spiritual reality behind them. You are now one of those people. You have been given the keys to the kingdom, the understanding of how consciousness creates reality, the knowledge of how to align with divine law. What you do with this understanding will determine not only the quality of your own life, but your contribution to the evolution of human consciousness. Remember that this is not a one-time revelation, but an ongoing practice. Understanding spiritual law intellectually is just the beginning. Embodying it, living it, demonstrating it in your daily experience is the real work. It requires constant vigilance, continuous practice, and unwavering faith in the invisible reality behind all appearances. There will be times when the old way of thinking tries to reassert itself, when circumstances seem to contradict what you know to be true, when it appears that spiritual law isn't working. In those moments, remember what you've learned here. Remember that appearances are not reality, that delay is not denial, that every experience is serving your highest good even when you can't see how. Trust the law. Trust the process. Trust the divine intelligence that is orchestrating all events for the ultimate benefit of everyone involved. Know that you are held in the arms of infinite love, guided by infinite wisdom, and empowered by infinite possibility. The world responds to you because you are part of the consciousness that creates the world. You are not separate from the divine intelligence that governs all existence. You are an expression of it. You are not outside the law looking in. You are the law in action. Live this truth, breathe this truth, be this truth, and watch as your world transforms to reflect the magnificent reality of who you truly are. Nothing is random. Everything is meaningful. You are the conscious creator of your experience. The world is waiting for you to claim this truth and live it fully. Your time is now. Your power is unlimited. Your potential is infinite. The world responds to you. Make sure you're sending the signal you want to receive.